to another Sarat the Big Ten Sourcebook training tutorial. This session is on Lo Ta'aneh B'Re'echa Eichake, do not be a false witness. My goal is to help you to be ready and feel confident to run your own discussion group. I will not be going through every source and comment in the source book, so either before watching this or after, you should read it through thoroughly. What I hope to do is give you an understanding of the structure and the intent of each section in the source book and some background information and insights that are not in the book, and make suggestions on how to enhance your session and discussion. So let's get going with the overview. False witness, the core value we will be discussing is exploring the power of speech. The first section is an introduction about where we explore the unique quality of speech for mankind. The second section talks about the powers of speech. How do we use speech? What are the different purposes of speech? Then we go into an introduction on page 4, the Peshat, the literal understanding that this is talking about being a false witness in court. Then we go into, on page 5, the fourth section where we get to the Yesod, the underlying principle. And the first one we're going to go into is the consequence of speech. Then on page 7 is the fifth section, Lashon Hara, Lo To'elet, negative words, but for positive consequence. And then on page 9 is the sixth section, Lashon Hara, Lashon Hatov, positive words for positive outcome, using speech as best as we can. And that's the end of the workbook with the final sections. Okay, let's get into a little bit more detail over here. As an opening activity, I suggest actually watching a wonderful Eli talk. It's in the supplemental materials over here. The link is online. Words of the Righteous and People in Love by Johnny Schnitzer, really good. Or if you don't have time or you don't have the ability to show it, share a quote from the talk. Words are cheap, yet they are very costly. And ask everyone to just think for a moment what that means and when they have experienced it. There's no need to share anything, so people get into this subject that way. Then say, we all know this to be so true. Let's explore where this is in the Ten Commandments and what wisdom it shares about it. So, section 1. Section 1 is where we explore speech being a unique quality of mankind. And the sources take us back to the story of Bereshit, the creation story, where we see that man became a ruach memalala, a speaking spirit. And that means that out of all the creatures, man is the speaker. And sometimes you can't get him to shut up. But that is our unique qualities. Animals also communicate. So how is human speech different? That's actually the first question here in the conversation. I think the answer is that we are able to communicate abstract ideas and collaborate on a grand scale. I recently met an Israeli neuroscientist who told me that our main advantage is problem solving. Fascinating, have that conversation. The second section is our different uses of speech. Here we have collaboration. Here we have in the sources really the emotional power, how important and how useful speech is for redemption of the agitated mind, and the tormented soul finds peace in confessing. Over here there is advocating, and then on the next page we have intellectual speech. And of course, one of the most tragic stories in the Torah is when Moses is told to speak to the rock to bring forth its water, and he hits it. And in the question here, we have what lesson about speech would the Israelites have learned? My answer is that if you use the right words, you can even get water out of a rock. The next section is the Peshat, the literal understanding, as we said, it is talking about being a witness in Beis Din, in the law court. And what's interesting to note is the first version in Parshas Yitro is Eid Shoket. Lo ta'aneh b're'echa, Eid Shoket. Do not be a false witness. Whereas in the second version of the Dibrot, we find a slight variation. Do not be Lo ta'aneh b're'echa, Eid Shav. Do not be a worthless witness. And that is significant, and you can look at how that is explained. Okay, going on, the next section, Yesod, gets us into the underlying principles, which we like to turn into core values. So the Safona over here, one of the great commentators, really, this is a great commentary which helps us for the entire Project Aseret, as Dibrot are not Dibrot, are not mitzvot. Dibrot are much broader, they encompass so much more. What are they encompassing? Says the Sforno, this Diber, the command, Lashon Hara, speaking badly about others, and Motzi Shemra, damaging lies about others. Remember that Lashon Hara, technically speaking, is when it's true. Lashon Hara is when it is true. And when it's false, if you actually lie, if you disparage someone by lying, and it's false, that's a different category called Motzi Shemra. And the third category is actually something spoken about in the book Chofetz Chaim that talks about rechilut, which is actually tail-bearing, which means, guess what Sarah said about you as it relates to you. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Obviously, after reading these sources, is ridiculous. However, maybe there is something to be said to developing some thick skin to protect from the words of others. Of course, we should be as sensitive as we can, understanding the power of what we're using and what we're doing. But maybe there's some wisdom in this after all. Not to be overly sensitive, because words are cheap. They're just very costly. Okay, this next section is Lashon Hara Lo To'elet. And that's really interesting. When there's actually a mitzvah to say bad things, right? Your friend is getting into business with a crook. You need to tell him, well, yes, we know it's a mitzvah, and you're very eager about it, but wait, there are 7 conditions over here. It's not so easy. And of course, that's to minimize the damage that's going to be done, because this is for positive consequence. The next section is my favorite section, actually. It's called Lashon HaTov, phrase I found coined, I guess you could call it, coined by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, where, to me, it's what's the best thing to do? Not to think about a pink elephant. Think about a blue one. Right? We spend so much effort being careful not to speak Lashon Hara. Turn it off. Do something else. Speak Lashon Hara. Speak good language. What can you do? We have so much opportunity to cause so much good through our words, to comfort, to inspire, to educate, to motivate, to make people laugh. And over here, the last source is such a powerful one. That Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had these students, and he would recount their praises. And we're told that Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 students who all died between Pesach and Shavuot. And the Talmud says they died because they didn't honor each other. They didn't give kavod one to another. And I heard a beautiful explanation once. Now, this is Rabbi Akiva's students. He's the guy of love. How could it be that his students, what were they missing? And the real kavod, the real honor we can give others, is to point out their uniqueness, their unique strengths. And that's what they didn't do. And that's something that we can do with speech. So obviously, at the end over here, we have integration. It can be very important to me, right? What does this Diber mean to you as a kohen? Do not be a false witness. Rather, recognize the power of words and use that to make this world a better place. When can it be applied? How often do we speak? What are the challenges we face? Many. And how can we overcome them? That's an individual and important conversation to have. Obviously, the book finishes with the everyday activities, supplemental materials, additional information, who's in the text, and personal reflection. I just want to point out that the additional information over here raises an interesting point, because it's obvious that included in the principles of not being a false witness are the values of truth and justice. And think about the connection between the three, the power of speech, truth and justice. Is it through our speech that we can achieve truth and justice? Could we achieve it any other way? I don't think so. Thank you for listening.